The envelope trembled in Marcus's hands as he stared at the return address. 5 years had passed since that rainy night when he'd found his boss slumped over the steering wheel in the company parking lot. 5 years since he'd made a split-second decision that would change both their lives forever. If you're wondering whether one act of kindness can transform your entire future, stay with me until the end of this incredible true story. And if you find yourself moved by what you're about to hear, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to our channel for more stories that remind us of the extraordinary power of human connection. Marcus Jenkins had never planned to be a hero. At 32, he was just trying to keep his head above water, working as a junior accountant at Westfield Financial with mounting student loans in a one-bedroom apartment he could barely afford. His boss, Richard Keller, was everything Marcus wasn't: confident, successful, with the corner office and luxury car to prove it. Richard was also notoriously difficult, known for his cutting remarks and impossible standards. The office joke was that Richard didn't have blood in his veins, just premium scotch and ice water. That Friday night in November, Marcus had stayed late to finish the quarterly reports. The office had emptied hours ago, the cleaning crew had come and gone, and even the most dedicated employees had headed home to start their weekends. As Marcus finally packed up his things around midnight, the rain was coming down in sheets, drumming against the windows like impatient fingers that he was halfway across the parking lot, already soaked despite his umbrella, when he noticed the silver Audi still parked in the executive space. The engine was running, headlights cutting weak paths through the downpour, but the car wasn't moving. Something about it made Marcus pause. He approached cautiously, peering through the driver's side window to find Richard slumped over the steering wheel, unresponsive. The door was unlocked. The smell of expensive whiskey hit Marcus immediately. Richard's breathing was shallow, his face flushed. An empty bottle lay on the passenger seat. Marcus's first instinct was to walk away. Richard Keller's problems weren't his concern, and God knows the man had never shown him any kindness. But something deeper than reason made Marcus reach for his phone instead. "I can't call an ambulance," Marcus muttered to himself, knowing what a DUI would do to Richard's career. But he couldn't leave him there either. Making a decision that would later seem either incredibly foolish or remarkably compassionate, Marcus managed to move Richard to the passenger seat. He found the man's house keys, wallet, and phone, then slid behind the wheel of a car worth more than he made in a year. The drive to Richard's suburban home took 40 minutes through the storm. Marcus had to stop twice when Richard began retching, holding his boss's head as he vomited on the roadside. By the time they arrived at the sprawling Tudor-style house, Marcus was exhausted and Richard was semi-conscious, mumbling incoherently about someone named Sarah. Getting Richard inside was another challenge. Marcus half-carried, half-dragged his boss through the front door, navigating the unfamiliar house until he found what appeared to be the master bedroom. He removed Richard's shoes and suit jacket, positioned him on his side in case he vomited again, and left a glass of water and aspirin on the nightstand. Before leaving, Marcus wrote a brief note explaining what had happened and called an Uber to take him back to his own car. As he waited in Richard's marble-floored foyer, Marcus felt a strange hollowness. He had just saved his boss from potential disaster, but he knew Richard would probably never acknowledge it. The man would be embarrassed, maybe even angry that Marcus had seen him in such a vulnerable state. At best, Monday would be awkward. At worst, Richard might find a reason to fire him. The Uber arrived, and Marcus took one last look around the immaculate house, the framed photographs of Richard with various celebrities and politicians, the awards and recognitions displayed prominently on built-in shelves. There was no evidence of family, no warmth. For the first time, Marcus felt something other than intimidation toward Richard Keller. He felt pity. Monday morning arrived with the usual chaos of ringing phones and urgent emails. Marcus kept his head down, expecting at any moment to be called into Richard's office. But the summons never came. Richard was absent, his office dark. By Wednesday, rumors circulated that he was on emergency leave. By Friday, the HR director announced that Richard would be taking an extended sabbatical for personal reasons. 2 weeks passed before Marcus found a handwritten envelope on his desk one morning. Inside was a brief note in Richard's distinctive scrawl, "My office. 8 a.m. tomorrow." No signature, no explanation. Marcus barely slept that night, convinced he was about to be fired. When he arrived at Richard's office the next morning, he found his boss looking different, thinner, somehow softer around the edges, the perpetual scowl replaced by something more contemplative. Richard gestured for Marcus to sit. "I've been in rehab," Richard said without preamble. "Alcohol dependency. It's been a problem for years, but I've been too stubborn to admit it." He paused, fingers drumming on his desk. "That night, you could have left me there. Most people would have. Why didn't you?" Marcus shifted uncomfortably. It seemed like the right thing to do. Richard studied him for a long moment. "Do you know who Sarah is?" Marcus shook his head. "My daughter. She would have been 28 this year." Richard's voice caught. "Drunk driver hit her when she was 19. The irony isn't lost on me." He opened his desk drawer and removed a photograph of a smiling young woman with Richard's eyes. "After she died, I started drinking. Lost my marriage, nearly lost everything else. That night in the parking lot wasn't the first time I'd been in that state, just the first time someone intervened." Marcus didn't know what to say. This vulnerability from the man who had seemed so invincible was disorienting. "I'm making changes," Richard continued. "Starting with how I run this department. And I want to start by offering you a promotion. Senior Financial Analyst. It comes with a substantial raise and your own office." Marcus blinked in surprise. "Sir, I appreciate the offer, but if this is because you feel you owe me something. This isn't charity, Jenkins. I've reviewed your work. You're underutilized and underpaid. I was too self-absorbed to notice before." Richard leaned forward. "Consider it good business sense, not gratitude. That promotion was just the beginning." Over the next year, Richard became a different kind of boss, still demanding excellence but now recognizing achievement, still intense but no longer cruel. He became Marcus's mentor, teaching him aspects of the business that junior accountants rarely saw. Their professional relationship evolved into something resembling friendship, though both men maintained a certain reserve. Then came the day, 18 months after that rainy night, when Richard called Marcus into his office and closed the door. "I'm starting my own firm," he announced. "Smaller, more specialized. I want you to come with me as a partner." Marcus stared at him in disbelief. "A partner? But I don't have the capital to." "I'll handle the initial investment," Richard interrupted. "You'll earn your equity through sweat and brains. I need someone I can trust, someone who sees people as more than balance sheets." He smiled slightly. "Someone who would help a drunk he doesn't even like on a rainy night for no personal gain." Keller and Jenkins Financial Advisors opened 6 months later. The first few years were challenging, long hours, uncertain finances, the stress of building a client base. But they had complementary skills, Richard's industry connections and strategic vision paired with Marcus's attention to detail and genuine concern for clients' well-being. Gradually, their reputation grew. They became known for their integrity and personalized approach, attracting clients who valued relationship over mere profit. 3 years into their partnership, Richard approached Marcus with another proposition. He wanted to establish a foundation in Sarah's name, providing scholarships for children who had lost parents to drunk driving. The foundation would also fund addiction treatment programs for those who couldn't afford help. Richard asked Marcus to serve on the board. The Sarah Keller Foundation became Richard's passion project. He spoke at schools about the dangers of drunk driving, funded research into addiction treatment, and personally mentored recovering alcoholics. The man who had once seemed so cold now devoted himself to helping others heal from the same wounds he carried. And now, 5 years after that rainy night, Marcus stood in his home office, staring at the envelope in his hands. Richard had been acting strangely for months, secretive phone calls, unexplained absences, evasive answers to direct questions. Marcus had begun to worry that his partner had relapsed, or perhaps was ill and hiding it. With trembling fingers, he opened the envelope and unfolded the letter inside. Marcus, it began in Richard's familiar handwriting. By the time you read this, the paperwork will be filed. I've been diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's. The prognosis isn't good. I have perhaps 2 years of clarity left, and I intend to use them well. I'm transferring my majority stake in the firm to you. The lawyers have the details. The foundation will continue under your guidance, with funding secured for the next 20 years. There's also a personal gift, the deed to my lake house, where I hope you and Emily will spend many happy weekends with your growing family. You saved my life that night, though neither of us knew it then. You gave me the chance to make amends, to honor Sarah properly, to find purpose again. There's no way to repay such a debt, but I've tried. Don't waste time arguing with me about this decision. It's done. Just promise me one thing: when you see someone struggling, even someone who's given you no reason to care, remember that kindness isn't just about what they deserve. It's about who you choose to be when no one is watching. With gratitude and respect, Richard. Marcus sank into his chair, the letter clutched in his hand. Outside, rain tapped against the windows, much like it had on that November night 5 years ago. He thought about how differently things might have turned out if he had walked past that silver Audi, if he had decided Richard Keller's problems weren't his concern. One small act of kindness, offered without expectation of return, had transformed not just Richard's life and his own, but now the lives of countless others through their work and the foundation. The ripples continued to spread outward in ways neither of them could have imagined. As Marcus carefully refolded the letter, he made a silent promise, not just to Richard, but to himself. He would honor this unexpected legacy by continuing to choose kindness, especially when it was difficult, especially when there seemed to be nothing to gain. Because sometimes, the most meaningful changes begin with the smallest choices. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. We believe in the power of stories to remind us of our shared humanity and the extraordinary impact of ordinary kindness. Share in the comments a time when an unexpected act of compassion changed your life, because every story of kindness deserves to be told.